So, so you, Colonel Cooper took you hunting. Not very many people probably get to say that, do they?
No, it was a select group, and when he was advanced in years, he tried to do a few hunting trips to be able to make sure that people that wanted to go with him were able to do so. So I just remember though this one experience when I was hunting a baboon, and that's something he really wanted to see me do because it was so challenging. I mean, I basically had to climb a mountain. I felt like G.I. Jane. I had the scout rifle slung on my back, and I was climbing a mountain, climbing with my hands. And then we see the baboon in the distance and sitting on a ledge eating an orange. And I crept up, and I went prone, and I aimed, and I got him on the first shot. But then we had to go retrieve the baboon when he fell off the cliff, and that in itself. And now my grandfather wasn't able to climb the mountain, but when he saw that, I mean, he was ecstatic, and I was shocked. I'm like, I can't believe I just did that. Now, and baboons are nasty animals, and they eat the crops, and they're nasty to the other animals, and they really wanted to. They're not upset when a baboon is taken out. So I felt like I was almost doing a favor to help the farmers, but just the experience itself was pretty phenomenal to be able to experience, and for my grandfather to see me do something like that was really neat.
I remember visiting with some fellas that were back from safari. And when I tell people that I'm a member of Safari Club, a lot of them don't understand. And in fact, I would tell you most people don't. They're like, oh, there's no reason to go shoot all those animals over there. They don't want them shot. And I'm like, you're not right about that at all. There is a balance that is struck with nature based on numbers, which is continually changing, and removing species in certain numbers, in certain ways, in certain places is absolutely paramount to making that happen. I remember this gentleman telling me that he had worked for years to put himself in a position to go shoot a couple of Dugga boys. I mean, the Cape buffalo, right? And so he's over there and he's preparing for his hunt. And I don't know who got word to who. I don't remember any of that part of the story, Amy. But basically, he was called on to come over here. We need you to dispatch this cat. Well, I'm here to do this, and I've invested a great deal of money and time to do this. No, we need the help. And so he went over to do that. And what he found out was, if he didn't find the cat and dispatch it for them, because it had been wreaking havoc on the villagers and all kinds of other stuff, right? It was a big problem. What they do, or what they were prepared to do if he couldn't, is to go out and, they would probably kill an elephant or something very large and then poison it, so that everything that came to eat off it will be poisoned, including the cat, and they would dispatch the cat. But untold number of other animals, birds and other things, would be feasting on this big animal in the meantime, and they would all go off and die too. So he was able to go do that. Unfortunately, he wasn't actually able to complete the hunt that he traveled all the way there for and paid for, but he was able to help the villagers in this area with this problem. I guess, I don't know if you'd call it something turned man-eater or not. I don't know if that's a correct term, but he was able to do that and make a big difference on the balance of everything else in that neighborhood, simply because the locals didn't choose to resort to poisoning this thing that would poison everything else. And I thought about that for a long time, and it was a really good example. I'm like, well, why don't you guys tell those stories so the public has a better understanding? Because there's a lot of people who don't get that. Like, well, nobody appears to be listening. So I try and help with that story when I can. It's not my own, but I do share it. And I think that people don't understand that kind of hunt. So I'm really glad that you're able to go do that.
Yeah, because, well, one thing that I remember too about, the government would go out and cull elephants. So if the hunters weren't doing, taking the populations of the animals down, the government was going to do it anyway, because it had to keep the balance. So I say, whether or not you're an advocate of hunting, at least with hunters, they're responsible. The money that they pay to hunt goes back into conservation. You're actually eating that the villagers were taking the meat and parts of the animals that we were not using. So we were basically feeding people in that environment and actually doing it in a humane way. And the money that we were used to hunting was going back into conservation. So to me, hunters are almost doing you a favor. It's a very humane thing. And I know people can be very against it, but the alternative can be ugly. So that's why I think you might not want to hunt, but I think you should still support hunters that are doing the right thing. I mean, there's a difference between poaching and hunting, and they're very strict about poachers. And so that's very different from hunting. So I think people need to understand exactly where hunters, responsible hunters, are coming from. And then maybe they would be more advocates of hunting.